Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Grace from Job Street, and together with our partner, Kaplan Singapore, we'd like to welcome you to Job Street's Industry Nights. Okay, so our focus for this evening is on accounting and finance, and to provide us with, the latest updates on the industry, we have with us Mr. 𝗙𝗲𝗱𝗆, who is the head of finance at foodpanda Singapore. Okay, now, during the presentation, 𝗙𝗲𝗱 will be sharing with us his journey, all right, in this industry, as well as he'll be addressing some of the questions that you have put across to us, all right. But along the way, all right, throughout this webinar, should you have any questions that you'd like to raise, you can just put them into the Q&A box, right, and then we'll try to address them later this evening. Okay, so without further delay, I'll pass the time over to 𝗙𝗲𝗱.
Hello everyone, good evening. Thanks for joining us today. I hope everyone is doing fine in this COVID situation. Most of us are working from home. So it's a new challenge. It's something new for all of us, and hope everyone is coping well with it. Let's start with today's topic. Our topic today is how to future-proof your career in accounting and finance. Times are changing very fast. It's a very dynamic world out there nowadays, and how we can actually work on our skills and our how can we groom ourselves and to future-proof ourselves with all these new technologies which are being introduced into our industry. Okay, let's start first with a bit of background about myself. I am a fellow of ACCA and Chartered Accountant Singapore. I have been working in Singapore for about 10 years. I started my journey in audit. So initially, I was working with a very small audit firm in Singapore once I graduated out of my school. And fortunately, a few months later, I got a placement in Deloitte. I was working in audit over there for 4 years. Then once moving out of audit, I tried a few commercial accounting roles, mainly which were with shipping industry. My last role was as a head of accounts in one of the shipping industry, and now recently I've joined foodpanda as a head of finance in the regional APAC team. So I had my fair share of hurdles and my challenges in my career. It wasn't a smooth path at all. Initially, every one of us know that once we come out of school, there's a lot of pressure to get a very rich and very diverse experience. So I had my I gone through a lot, as in work my way to other career and design it in such a way that I can capitalize it later part of my journey. So that's about it. So coming back to the topic today, why are we talking about this? The main reason, as you know, that our profession is changing very swiftly, and as you can see, I've shared outcome from one of the surveys conducted by ACCA Singapore. You can see in traditional accountants, they were supposed to do bookkeeping, data entry, but that role is changing quite a lot. Now, a lot of these things are being done by the system automatically. There's very little or no human involvement. And the focus is more and more on business partnering nowadays. So the main, expectation from accountant is how they can add value to business, not just how to report numbers. Compliance will always be there. Compliance requirement will always be there. So we have some statutory requirements to deal with at the end of the period. But on top of that, from management, from stakeholders, we are always required to come up with ideas and solutions and analysis. So how we can actually add value at the end of the day. It's no more about just scorekeeping. It's not just about reporting at the month end. It's more about we are working as a diligent caretaker of the business. We are working directly with the management and top positions in the hierarchy of the company. And then we are actually contributor to the end product that is being delivered to the consumers outside, to our outside parties. Moving to next slide. So how do you define a future-proof accountant? There are three main components. As I mentioned here, number one, we need to know what accounting really is. It's always will be a basic to know the accounting framework. Although a lot of accounting right now currently is being handled by systems, there's a lot of involvement of technologies in our day-to-day work. But to actually know the debits and credits, the basics of the profession, it will always be a requirement. Next is obviously with the advent of new technology, there's a lot of new things happening in our accounting space. So to learn about, to get used to this technology and to use it for our, the outcome that is expected of us, we need to get used to this. And thirdly, we always need to keep in mind the expectations that are from us by the stakeholders. So that expectations can be the management, it can be the partners that we're working with within the company, it can be internal customers or external customers. It can also be our vendors or regulatory authorities. So they have certain expectations of us and how we are working for a company. So let's discuss this one by one. What is accounting knowledge? Accounting knowledge, as you all know, this is your basic education that you get from the book or from the school. Moving to next slide, there are different routes to this profession. So how do you become a professional accountant? Either you get registered with a global body of knowledge, a global accounting body, or it can be a national body. For Singapore, it's Singapore Chartered Accountants Institute. For globally, there are many institutes available. There are CPA Australia, the ACCA, ICAW. They can be, depending on the region that we are working in. So there are numerous bodies. Another more usual route is coming from university. So we get either a specialized degree in accountancy itself, or we get a business degree, and then we get some specialization in accounting. And more nowadays, there are people who are crossing over from other professions. So they will study their main core studies in, for example, engineering or other specialization, but they'll take some modules because they want to tap into this profession and they want to learn more about accounting and apply it in their day-to-day job. Going to next slide. So I've taken extracts over here from the ACCA's framework. So what exactly are we studying when we are studying for accounting? There are numerous subjects, there are numerous modules, but this is a good summary of all of them. So it can be the audit, it can be advisory, it can be little taxation, it can be management of financial accounting, it can be someone doing leadership or management role. But all of it, it's coming together. Accountants will study basics for all of these subjects and then specialize in one of them. The main thing we need to see here is all these subjects are basically we need base for all these subjects in our studies. So when you are studying for maybe your basic accounting study, you will study bits and pieces of all of them. Every one of us know how to do taxation, or every one of us know how to do audit, leadership management. But in the later part of the studies, you will go on to one of the specialized roles, and then you will study for that. So this is, the route basically that usually a professional accountant will take. Going to next slide. How ACCA has done it. They have basically 5 professional routes for its candidates. I've taken ACCA's example because they have recently come out with a report on the future of accountancy, and it's quite a good report to study for professional accountants who have been in the profession for a while, or one who are entering the profession also. So basically, either you can work as assurance advocate. So in our current industry, assurance advocates can be a forensic accountant, can be external auditor, can be someone who was doing some special purpose audit. They can be numerous number of reasons for conducting those audits. Then there's a business transformer. So this business transformer is not just doing accounting for the business. They're actually owner of all the numbers that flows in and out of the company's balance sheet and P&L. So how they can actually add value, how they can analyze that information. There are a lot of things, that can be done with this accounting information on day-to-day basis. So, for example, if you are going for M&A activity, or you're going for IPO, or you're merging with your another sister company, or you want to diversify into and join a bigger group, this information is being processed by an accountant at the end of the day. So knowing your basics will always help, no matter which part of role you are currently working in. Data navigator and digital playmaker. So data navigator is someone who is working with all this data that we have currently, and come up with a report for the management and the end users to actually visualize certain maybe portion of the business, or maybe can come up with a analysis which is outside the box for the ultimately management to use. At the end of the day, the last one mentioned here, sustainability trailblazer. So nowadays, a very deep focus and a very crucial thing for all businesses is sustainability. You know, times are very tough, and what company is making it's very profitable. In one month can go out of business in the next month. Reason being, there's opportunities lying everywhere. There's a lot of risk that companies are taking. So sustainability always underline the performance of a business. We always need to know if our performance are sustainable, if the numbers that we are reporting, what is the quality of the earnings. A lot of revenues that we are currently reporting in our books may not have been realized yet. So, is it something that is realizable? There's a lot of scrutiny done by all these regulatory authorities. So this is something which underlines our profession quite a lot nowadays. So a person who will study this will be following this route of the business. Okay, going to next slide. This is a career path you can see for a normal or usual accountant we will take. So basically, starting with, being a professional accountant, everyone starts with the same platform. So ultimately, as I mentioned, as you go up and you specialize in your studies, in your role, you can either be an assurance advocate, you can be a business transformer, you can be a digital playmaker. So depending on your choices, depending on your own preferences, you can specialize in one of them. And then many times these, since they are so closely linked, this can be, you can zoom, in and out of these zones. So obviously, once you are specialized in something, it may not be a very simple task that you move to another role. Some of them are quite different and quite distant from your specialization. But yes, certain times when one professional line that you're following may not be something which you thought of it in the beginning of your career, you can actually move to another zone, and it's workable. It's not something, and you can always be specialized in two different zones. Okay, moving to next slide. So now let's talk a bit about technology. So what really technology means in current scenario? Technology basically is composed of two things in my opinion. One is the information flow, the other one is information analysis. Let's discuss both of these one by one. Information flow is something, how you get the information from the source document or from the transaction, and which ends up in your journal entry or in your journal ledger, and how is it reflected in your financial statements to the end user. So the workflow of how this all information is processed by the system, how it's processed by the workflows within the organization is very important. Sometimes it's very manual. In small or new companies, they don't have workflows and processes in place. So if they're not making use of technology that's available, it might be very, the accountant will need to process all the information on its own. But sometimes when you're using technology, this information is reached from point A to the point Z very quickly, and there's no or little human interaction with this information. For example, I'll give you an example of accounts payable function. just few years ago, we used to have a specialized role called accounts payable. I mean, a person will pick up the purchase request from the requester, he'll process, and he'll get quotations. He'll put those entry and accruals in the system. Next step, he'll get purchase order to be sent to vendor, and once they receive invoice, he'll manually key in the entry. When the goods are delivered, he will pick up the GRN and do the goods delivery in the system. So that was very manual process. Now system is, has taken advantage of technology so much so that from requesting until the payment part, there's very little interaction by the accounts payable function. So now they have moved on to next level. They are doing more analytical work, and all this, picking up the invoices from vendor, picking up GRN, recording all these entries directly is done automatically by systems. Many of them, they are very self-sufficient, and the systems are very self-sufficient in recording all these. Next, what is the quality of information? Sorry, we are on the previous slide. Yeah, so quality of information being supplied. So obviously, information can be very well handled by the system, but if the information is not properly handled by a system, it will be how you say, garbage in, garbage out. Nowadays, we are using OCR to read all the invoices in the system. If the system is not reading these invoices properly, or misreading the invoices, the vendor name basically, it's not being read properly in my accounts payable example, or the amount is not correctly picked up, then obviously the whole accounting may be messed up, and end of the day, what you get will be no use to the end user. Lastly, how the information is received, is it readily able to use by the end user, or there's some additional processes that need to be done? So once, system can help you to record debits and credit, but are you able to use those debits and credits to actually make a report, or do you still need to do certain, mapping to the, your financial statements and mapping to your other management reports, or that can be readily be able to extract from system? So those things, how the company is making use of technology in the information flow, that's very critical, and that's what defines our future accountant. So as more and more technology is being used, there's very less interaction on these tedious and these manual tasks, and accountants basically are required to work at a much higher level on more analytical and more value-adding work. Moving to next slide. Information analysis. So now the next part, where we are using this technology in our profession, is the analysis of the information that is being provided by the system. So there are many different kind of analysis. It can be quantitative, meaning it can be financial ratios, it can be some advanced technical ratios, or it can be qualitative nature. So how many orders per customer, or how many failed orders maybe. So those things are called qualitative. So this, we can employ technology to basically automatically calculate and visualize this data and present it to the end users to actually make use of it. It can be a mixture of both. So it can be, how much revenue you've earned per customer, or any other sort of mixture for the analysis that you can, any other mixture of these two sort of analysis for your use. So this, this is where technology is quite useful. Nowadays, we have a lot of dashboards available where we can directly link it to our accounting system, and we only need to look at the graphs, or we look at the trends, and some systems can even do forecasts for next quarter for you, which is quite close to the actual. They take into account all data from your business, or they take the data input from external sources as well. They make use of the industry trends. They make use of the your announcement from the government. So a lot of things, can come together to present this data. And at the end of the day, you are just visualizing those information and then using that information for your, for your business growth. So you don't need to do all those tasks, which is, the technology can handle very well for you. Next, internally, a lot of people, they ask what tools we can use for analysis. So we do use, as accountants, as most of you know, Excel is like from sunrise to sunset, we are using Excel the whole day. Excel is very critical, very important. I mean, especially for in systems which are not that advanced, that technology is not available. We need to know Excel, advanced Excel, to actually we can learn all these advanced formulas. We can learn how to filter and interpret data in such a way. We need to combine few spreadsheets together. Nowadays, Excel in itself has a lot of functionality. For example, 𝗙𝗏𝗱𝗏 is a database available within the Excel, which we can use to actually link different sources of data and then create some sort of analysis for the management for our own use to actually come up with a decision. Other than that, there's a lot of BI tools available to accountants. These are advanced BI tools, I mean, which make use of advanced technology within, and as I mentioned, the data input can be from within the system, outside systems, which can be quite useful when we are making a critical strategic decision. Apart from that, nowadays, many accountants, they want to learn programming as well. So, I mean, although there are a lot of BI tools available, there are a lot of, I mean, Excel-based advanced tools available. Some of them, they want to go to next level and they want to learn programming, for example, SQL, VBA, Python, to actually make their own, for example, sort of a program for themselves, which will analyze the data for them in a more customized and more unique way, which they can use for reporting. Ultimately, I mean, when we have a large amount of data, you need a lot of different kind of mathematical tools. You can always use statistics analysis and present it in different formats. I mean, as simple as graphs and pie charts in Excel to more advanced. For example, when using Tableau, you can use, you can feed this data into Tableau and get the outcome which you desire to see. Most importantly, using all this technology and all this advanced software you can use, ultimately our goal is to how we are going to present this data to the end user. Our end user might not be an accountant, they might not be a very advanced person who can read this analysis. I mean, we cannot present, it's more like a raw data for them. So we need to see what is the expectation, what is the requirement, how they want to see. Is it some of them they're very happy with the colorful pie chart. Some of them they want to make it more visual and they want to see how we can do the decision making for them. I mean, within our we can present them with a few choices so that they don't need to actually look at the numbers. They don't need to look at the quantitative or qualitative analysis. They just want to see what are the options available to us so that they can make a final decision. So I mean, it all depends on the audience that we have who want to use this data ultimately, and then so that it's useful to them. Going to the next slide. Okay, so now the questions come to mind. Okay, why do we need to upgrade? Or what is the requirement? Is our accounting knowledge or accounting the book that we are reading for accounting or the curriculum that we have, is it not sufficient for our profession? So I mean, I this one image that is quite popular nowadays over here. I mean, I'm sure most of you have seen it. So until last decade, there were helicopters available, and being a helicopter pilot is no easy task. You have to go to a lot of training, you have to go to put in a lot of hours, and there's extensive course to learn how to fly a pilot. Similarly, for being a cameraman, it's not just I mean, getting extensive hardware. It involves a lot of trainings, a lot of years of hard work to actually learn that profession. But just 10 years down the road, we all know we now have new technology coming in our use, which is called drones. It can do a job of both a helicopter pilot and both that of a cameraman. Obviously, I mean, what I want to show here that yes, I mean, we might be spending a lot of time and effort in pursuing something, but we need to also see if it is relevant to our current industry and current times. Is it really something? I mean, once our current profession evolves, will it be required? So when previously there used to be two persons doing this one job, now there's one person who is just using a remote. He knows how to fly this, so he'll be learning something similar to what a pilot learns when he's learning how to fly a helicopter. At the same time, he will also need to learn how to actually capture certain images or capture a video. So as we upgrade ourselves, a lot of things have taken over by the technology. Nowadays, these drone cameras can fly themselves, they can follow and focus on their own. So now, I mean, we go to next level, and for example, to actually where we want to shoot and where, how do you want to use technology our advantage. Main thing that we are doing is to identifying our unique selling point. So every one of us can learn how to fly a drone or how to fly a helicopter, but what really differentiates you from the other person? What really is something that makes you stand out from the crowd? So that is something we need to identify and then pursue that in our profession. Over here, okay, going to next slide. As I mentioned, ACCA has come up with a report which is quite a good read if you, if you can spare some time to give it a read. They have identified basically 20 trends that they feel that are very critical for the professional accountants in the next coming decade. There are some, all of them are very relevant. All of them are very important. I like 3 of them, which are I feel very strongly about, and I feel are really important to professionals nowadays, to actually keeping in mind to upgrade themselves and to align themselves with the current dynamics of the profession. Going to next slide. The first one that comes to mind is automation. So automation nowadays, as I mentioned earlier, accounts payable function basically used to be handled by a few people. Now the whole process can be automated by using just one very advanced system. There's no need for a person to actually go and collect the document, to actually record the document, to read the document, to actually make sure everything is accurate. Now all these jobs can be done by the system on its own. There is no need to actually have few people employed to have segregation of duties. Because system can alone handle all these things, and there's no override by any personnel. So all things can be handled. So automation is very critical in our profession. We are using automation for many different things that's mentioned here. So it can be used to improve control. So yes, if we have right controls in place, there's very less override of the system by, for example, those in power. So we can improve the control of our business process. It can improve the speed. So it's not just it works 24 hours. So you don't need someone to actually go and email the vendor and pay for an invoice. It will be sent to you direct. It will be sent to the system directly, and the system will pick it up and post directly for you. So there's no need for follow-up. There's no need for the person actually spending time on this menial task. Again, it will reduce costs, because once you make an investment, over the long run, it will always be more economical than to actually employ 4 or 5 people. Those 4 or 5 people, I'm not saying put them out of the job. They will need to upgrade themselves to do more advanced skills, more advanced work. So instead of just booking an invoice in the system or posting a debit credit entries, they will be working on more analytical tasks. For example, now in my team, I always ask my accounts payable specialist to basically go and forecast the cash flows for me. I ask him to actually go and see how we can improve our credit profile for our vendors and for our customers as well. So obviously, this is not the end of profession. Few years down the road, or even now, there are systems available who can do cash flow forecast for you, or who can actually give you information to improve your credit profile. So, but what I'm trying to say here is that all these tasks, as technology is more and more adapted by the society, these tasks will be handled by the technology, and we need to actually upgrade ourselves to do something which is more, much more on a higher level. Then because there's very less human interaction, with advanced tools, the accuracy will be much higher. We can process more information, and with if you look at the investment, if you look at the cost of having a system, we can have higher number of transactions the system can process. And end of the day, basically, it will improve. It will be a value adding to the business, because at the end of the day, with very little cost, we are working at much more higher efficiency, and then we are, on top of that, we are adding actual value to our business by providing them with a very useful analysis. Another thing that automation brings about is blockchain. Nowadays, it's quite a buzzword in our society. So for, as you know, there are already experimentation going on how to process audits and how to do accounting using blockchain. So there will no longer be need for having two separate systems to process one transaction. If the blockchain is implemented, both the vendor and the customer side can have the entry posted, and it will be cross-verified, and at the same time it can be audited as well. So with this new technology, I mean, a lot of the operational side of these, I mean, finance operations will be reduced, it will be more efficient, and it will be more, letting the professional accountants do more value-adding work. Moving to next slide. Another thing that I'm quite fond of is the rise of data. So not just with the advent of technology, not just we are working on at a much higher level, we are actually have more data to use and utilize in our day-to-day work. There are a lot of possibilities that we have in our hand, where we can use data. We can use it for forecasting and budgeting. We can use it for making proposals for our clients. We can use it. I mean, and those. I mean, even though nowadays we're also doing the same thing, but then we'll use all this data and all these external sources of data for our own betterment, and we can put up a proposal or put up a budgeting and forecasting which is more closely aligned with the actuals. And that will actually improve our efficiency. It will also improve our reporting, and it. Forecasting will not just be a checklist item at the end of the year. It will actually be. Management will be looking forward to it more closely, because that is something very close to the reality, and they don't need to wait for the end of the next year to actually see how the business is performing. They can do the feasibility study now. They can look at the probability of the next year, next period now, and they can make a decision: is it really worthwhile to go into business or not? So as more of it is coming close to reality, the better decision making can be made. There are a lot of use of artificial intelligence, as I mentioned, for invoicing. OCR is very much in use nowadays. The invoices, I mean, there are many hundreds of thousands different formats of invoices, but with artificial intelligence, we can read all those invoices and document in our system without any input from the accountant. So these things are very much useful going forward. The third topic, going next slide. Yeah, the third thing I want to highlight is that is a trend nowadays is to working on outside the usual boundaries of accountancy. So accountants nowadays are not just doing accounting. As I mentioned, traditional accounting is no longer has no longer a place in our current setup. Accountants are required to work on top of their compliance duties, on top of their reporting duties. They also are expected to work on the actually value-adding part of the business. So they nowadays a very popular career path for the accountants is to become a finance business partner, which is basically accountant working very closely with operational side, and so much close that they are not. Sometimes they're not even looking at debits and credit. They're not worrying about billing and reporting, and they are more closely on financial modeling. They are doing feasibility study and profitability studies for their organizations. They are doing budgeting, and that is no longer. They're no longer working basically as accountants. They are more closely aligned with the operational side. So how this will transform? So we will probably going forward. We will not. We'll not have such a big teams which are doing accounting in a business. We have more team working. Even nowadays, a lot of big companies and advanced companies, they have bigger business finance teams than the accounting team. These teams work very closely with the operational side. They do a lot of feasibility study on day-to-day basis, and they have so much deep. They do so much deep analysis of the data that sometimes it's so accurate that you actually don't need the actual numbers to tell the decision makers that if the segment of the business or the cost center of the if the central business line is making profit or not. It can be just they can look at the profitability from forecast and budgets, and they will know how the business perform next period. So as that goes on and on, you will see the accountant's role changing very very dynamically. Business skills that, nowadays the business is requiring accountants to have not just accounting knowledge, but also to, they are accountants who are very specialized in a certain industry. There are courses out there which are, which the accountants can take to actually specialize in a certain industry. For example, for shipping, for manufacturing, there are certain courses available which the accountants can take and be more relevant to that industry than the other industry. Obviously, for banks and financial institutions, they already very specialized accounting knowledge requirement. So on top of that, how they can add value to any specific industry, they can follow that. As those skills requirement goes, as this skills requirements are increased on a day-to-day basis, the structure of organization become more and more less and less rigid. It's no longer bifurcated by department. It's more bifurcated by business verticals. So there'll be business vertical A and B and C, and inside this vertical there'll be accountant, there'll be a one operational side, one business development side person sitting. So it's more and more sort of a matrix structure that we're looking at going forward. So that's, it's no longer a very straight pathway for accountants. It's not just all the accountants who start as a professional accountant, they end up becoming CFO. Some of them actually go on to become CEOs and COOs, and even some of them switch into maybe sales or operational sides altogether at the end of the career, because that is where the real value-adding work lies, as opposed to just being accountant who's just doing debits, credits, and reporting for statutory requirement. Yeah. Going to next slide. Yeah. So the last part of the 3 modules that I mentioned is expectation of stakeholder. This is very important in addition to the knowledge and the technology, because this actually defines where we need to apply our knowledge and where we actually need to apply the technology. Not all technologies are relevant to all the industry, and not all knowledge, for example, if someone knows about banking regulations, it may not be relevant to manufacturing. So what the expectations of stakeholders are very important in this. Going to next slide. So from the same report, basically these are some of the buzzwords they have mentioned, that why we should be upgrading and what we need to do. So basically the stakeholders will require us to do certain analysis. They will want us to adapt to the current business model. They will want us to help them on certain decision making, and how we can do that. So where is the right use of technology, what software tools that we need to use. And at the end of the day, most of the times is, the technology may not be relevant, or if it's relevant, maybe it's expensive. So do we really need this technology? Is it feasible to use the technology in our day-to-day work? So these are some of the buzzwords. The accountant need to be adaptable. They don't, it's no longer a very rigid profession. They need to get technology. They need to learn the technology and use it for their own grooming and for the development of the business. They need to start taking risks. They need to learn how to use data. They need to work on how they can build their own profile, what skills they need to learn. Because nowadays you can specialize in an industry, but that should not stop you from learning new skills. You need to build your profile in such a way so your skills can be transferred and can be used in other industries as well. So many times certain skills are very relevant to one industry, but not to other industries. So if you feel that you need to move into an industry, the first thing you should do is to learn those skills, not just start applying for jobs. And ultimately, your goal is to actually do what you love. It's not just about following certain. Everyone has a different pathway for their profession. Everyone is working their way up, and they have different routes. Some of them start very well, and then they have hurdles. Some of them have hurdles at the beginning of the career, and they move on to becoming successful in their career. So everyone has their own path. So you must choose where you want to do and what you want to do in your career, and then design your pathway, learn the skills that's required. So if you want to be a CFO in a banking industry, you need to learn what is required in the banking industry. If you want to be a CEO of a a country or a countryman head of the part of organization, you need to learn what leadership skills, what other skills, management skills you need to learn. If you want to be working with data and you want to be a data analytic in later part of your career, so what skills you need. So for everyone, it's a different pathway, and for everyone, they should consider accordingly what they want to do, and what the stakeholders, what the management will be expecting of them to deliver at the end of the day. Those are the skills that they need to work on and gather. Going to next slide. Yeah. So I think that's the end of. So basically, I mean, that's the core of my presentation. So basically, I mean, technology is something which is there to stay. It's every day we see new technology coming in our work, I mean, in our workspace and in our jobs. So we need to adapt to those technology and learn how we can make use of it to actually do our job in a better way. Okay, over to you, Grace. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Uma. All right. We'll now proceed on with the Q&A session. Now, we had actually received a lot of questions during the registration. Okay, so with the time that we have for this session, we're unable to answer all. So what we'll do is to address the most commonly asked questions you have raised. Okay, so the first question for Uma is, what are the roles that are currently most sought after in the accounting and finance industry?
Okay, so from what I've seen currently, obviously a lot of accountants will start their career either with audit or commercial accounting, but in the later part or mid of the career, they want to move into business finance. This is basically to work with, as I mentioned, as a finance business partner, work with the operational side, do forecasting analysis, and also on budgeting side. So that is something which attracts a lot of professionals in this kind of industry.
Okay. Next question.
Yeah.
Okay. We have one here. Having 12 years of accounting experience, but without a degree nor CPA certified, what kind of career opportunities would be available for them in this industry?
Okay. So basically, I mean, having nowadays, I mean, degrees and qualifications are required at the beginning of your career. So once, I mean, you embark on your career, all these degrees are required. In accounting, it's a slightly different case. So as you know, number one, the industry is changing quite dynamically nowadays, and secondly, all this with all the new accounting standards and accounting pronounced standards coming every other month, to actually go up in the hierarchy of business, one needs to have a certain level of qualification. CPAs are usually degree is nowadays not relevant. It will help you to get your career to start, but CPAs and chartered accountancy, basically there's a requirement on annual CPD, which will help you to keep yourself up to date with all the new accounting, and that will help you in accounting career. But obviously that is not the end of it. A lot of times experience counts, because most of the industry that you're working on, sometimes the accounting knowledge may not be relevant, because you're working in the space where you're not doing statutory accounting. You are more working on analysis side, and your experience is very valuable in that line of business. So it really depends on what you are currently working on, and then you can see if you want to work on some in the line of accounting where the CPAs are certification is required, then you need to do that.
Okay. All right. Next question. Okay. I have taken a gap of 1 year due to my pregnancy. How welcome is the industry today for people like me who have taken a break?
Okay. So 1 year of break, obviously, anyone who's working in industry, they need to keep upgrading themselves. So if 1 year of break means there are certain new, if you're working as a chartered accountant and there's new standards that have come into play, and you're not up to date on those. So obviously, when you go back to industry, you need to gather that knowledge before you go back to the role, and then you'll be more welcoming. But certain roles, yes, I mean, probably before going in for a break, you might have experience in certain, you have gathered few skills and just knowledge that might still be very relevant. It's not obsolete knowledge, and it's not something that, I mean, will be used against you, I mean, at this break. So it just needs, I mean, even after joining, even a person who is working without a break, they also need to keep themselves up to date and keep updating themselves on a periodic basis to gain the relevant knowledge.
Okay. Next question we have. Okay, with many uncertainties and possible retrenchments, what other alternative career switch can an accounting personnel move into?
Okay. So as I mentioned that accounting nowadays, I mean, when you're working as an accountant in a mid-career or on a more higher level, you are very closely involved with the operational side. You are working, you might be working as a finance business partner, you might be working as a finance analyst, you might be working very close to business development. I mean, so these are some of the spaces that you can, I've seen many people who move out of accounting entirely and work with operations and management side because they had been working with these people for so long. Basically the accounting knowledge or accounting background helps a lot when you move into these management and operational side, because they can very closely align with financial information, and they can understand the dynamics of the costing and forecasting, budgeting, and they can use it for their own advantage when you move to this alternate career path that you mentioned.
Okay.
Yep.
Question. Okay, for both Singaporeans and foreigners with non-accounting finance related background, examples are like aviation engineering, mathematics, customer service, financial consultant, etc. Is it possible to embark on a career and transit into the accounting and finance industry? And is age a key factor for those above 40? Okay.
So, I mean, a lot of people that I've seen, they come basically from non-accounting backgrounds, and they have started probably they have gathered some interest in accounting, and they start learning. I mean, doing accounting degree and accounting course may not be the starting point for these people. Probably, I mean, halfway through their career, they found out they are interested in accounting, and they embark on this career. So yes, I mean, it's something that is possible and that happens as well. Then at the end of the day, it depends on what is your knowledge level. So when you start, when you make a career switch and you gain the relevant knowledge. So if, for example, you went on to get a CPA of that relevant region, so yes, you can start working as an accountant, but then you will be on the same par with the person who has started afresh. But because you have some industry knowledge, you have some background in this industry, that might be, I mean, you'll be able to go up the hierarchy very quickly. So this, I mean, so it all depends on how you use your strengths, basically how you capitalize on your strengths. You can use the industry knowledge, of course, with a certain, I mean, a lot of people do certain accounting course. They might not go into full-fledged accounting degrees or CPA courses. Instead, they take certain accounting, which is more relevant to their job or more relevant to the role they want to progress into. And then they couple it with their prior experience, their industry knowledge, and they move on to be, I mean, use it to actually progress in the career path. Is age a key factor? I wouldn't say age is a key factor. I mean, learning can start at any age, but it's just that how you use your strengths, how you if you're coming from a background which is not at all relevant to your next role or the role you want to move into, then obviously you'll be on the same par with the fresh graduates. It really depends on the person if he wants to be in that stage, or if he can choose another path where he can use his prior experience It may not be something he has worked on previously, but he can couple it with accounting and start working in that role. So that can be quite useful.
Okay. Right. Next, we'll move on to some, because I see that there are live Q&A questions that came in. So I'll just read them out, yeah? Okay. As a fresh grad in Singapore, which are the best applications to learn that are related to accounting to get a job immediately?
Okay. The best application, I think, if I need to name one application, that will be Microsoft Excel, because this is something not everyone learns when they are going through their schooling. So if you can get a certification in Excel advanced, that is very, very useful when you go for jobs, because right from day one you will be required to use it. Apart from that, depending on the industry you want to go into, so if they can be a number of courses that you might enroll in. For example, if you are thinking of going into manufacturing industry, there might be a course out there to actually learn the basics of manufacturing or basics of shipping. That might be helpful to you in that specific industry. So specific knowledge might be also be something that will help you to place you in a better position than the rest of people.
Okay. We've got a question from Alina. She asked a simple question: is Data Protection Act a relevant skill for an accountant to learn?
Yes and no. So Data Protection Act, it depends on your role, what you're currently working as. So for example, if you're working, I'll give you an example how it was relevant to me recently. We are working on vendor onboarding form. So we know a lot of vendors collect information from their customers, and for certain industries, very sensitive information. A lot of times we are sharing information with these vendors, which can be misused, or if they are not safe or it's not protected properly, it can be quite harmful to the business. So yes, we need to know maybe basics of it, but not entirely the act. Because it may not be relevant to us, but at least we need to know how it's going to affect our role. So for this specific project I was working on, I wanted to know, okay, what information is being collected from us and how they're going to store it, and if we need to protect ourselves from any harm from external sources, how we can protect ourselves. So yes, part of it is yes and no. Yeah.
Okay. We have this question. Can you share what are the immediate priorities in the next 12 months and challenges that you're currently facing as the profession changes?
Okay. So right now, as you know, we are going through a very special situation. We're going to a pandemic, and many industries are suffering from it, and many others are having some, you can say, short-term gains out of it. So our immediate priority should be actually, again, we need to make sure that for businesses, the main priority is to make sure that all their earnings and all their income is sustainable. So some of the industries which are losing money nowadays, they might need to make sure that do they have sufficient cash flows to actually survive next 12 months or next 24 months. Other industries who are doing very well, they might have short-term huge profits. So they need to ensure, okay, is it for next 6 months? Yes, I'm making a lot of profits, but after 6 months, what will happen? Will it be a sustainable business for me? Should I grow, or should I keep myself, should I stay conservative? So these are some of the priorities the business are thinking about. Accordingly, the accountants also need to think on those lines, how they can help the business. So for cash flow point of view, they need to make sure, okay, they need to tell their management how and what are the critical cash flows that required for next 12 months, and how they can optimize their costs. for the industries that are doing very well, they need to show, okay, what is the quality of their earnings? Is it just a short numbers or is it short-term gains they have, or is something which is sustainable? If it is sustainable, how they can keep it that way? Many times we see the industries they gain because of certain situation or requirement or demand in the industry, they gain very well. But they while making use of it, they are not able to sustain that, even though that demand is there to stay, but they are not able to stay alive to actually see because they didn't invest in the right, they didn't make the right investment, or they didn't make the right call during time. So those things we need to work with our management and see where we can actually add value.
Okay. We have a question from Anson. Okay. Not too sure that that's a place or a thing, but the question is, can you name 2 computer languages that are beneficial to an accountant's future career?
Computer languages. So last time, just last year, I would like to share with you, I was started learning Python for my own learning, but halfway through the course, I came to know it's no more relevant. So nowadays the industries are changing so rapidly, new more relevant languages are coming every day. So really need to see what is relevant to you. So the 2, one is, I think, which is always an evergreen, is VBA in Excel for doing macros. It's always relevant to accountants. They can do a lot of automation within Excel. So that is something I always ask. If they want to go, even after doing advanced level Excel, they want to go another level, they should be VBA or SQL, that they should be learning and upgrading themselves. Apart from that, depending on your industry, depending on the nature of data that you have, because not all data can be fed into all the programming languages. So depending on that, other than that, you can look at some BI tools, for example, Tableau or Power BI, to actually learn those and use those already available tools for your own analysis. That will give you the exactly same outcome as you will with a programming language.
Okay. I've got another question here. I'm actually doing ACCA, but exams are difficult. Any advice for me?
Okay. I took exams more than 10 years ago, so I'm not sure how the examination has changed. But my idea is, there are always 2 takeaways you should take from the exams. Number one, how this, when you're learning for something, how is it relevant to your industry? So you should not just study for your, just not focus on your exams at the end of the day, but you should focus on how it's going to apply it in your actual practical life, because that opens up your mind and gives you a broad perspective of how certain numericals or how problems can be solved. And at the exam day itself, it will help you because you never know what kind of case study will be given to you. Apart from that, sometimes, from exam point of view, especially for ACCA, what I did, I always try to understand how does the examiner want to see what kind of answer they are expecting from you. Sometimes they're asking you, for example, one of my exams, I always tell my friends, I'm not sure, it was probably beginning of my ACCA, the examiner asked us to prepare a balance sheet. And for some reason, I could not balance my balance sheet. But still, I scored, I think, about 75% on that exam. Reason being, because I know the examiner is not looking for a balanced balance sheet. Balancing a balance sheet maybe give you 1 or 2 additional marks, but what actually they're working on, the workings that's required to come up with a balance sheet. So those are more important parts of your learning journey when you are studying for any exam. So you should always keep in mind that not just to pass your exam, but actually to go ahead and how to apply it on real life, because that will always help you in your exams, to start with.
Another short question is QuickBook as an accounting tool really reliable?
I'm sure it's quite reliable because it's quite widely used. I wouldn't say it's not reliable. But depending, again, I mean, QuickBooks is not extensive ERP system. So depending on the need of the company and the requirement of the business, it might, I mean, it really depends if it is relevant to business, and are you only using QuickBooks just for as a reporting tool or using it as an analytical tool. So it might not be a very good analytical tool from what I have seen, but if you're using it for reporting, I don't see any issue. It's quite, I mean, there's some quite good features in it, and there's some quite good integrations within this software.
Okay. I have a question here. Okay. This person says that how does one move from an accounting role to business partnering role if the core requirements are a couple of years experience in FBA? He says, and no one is giving the accountant such opportunity. I suppose perhaps, Uma, you could sort of like advise how this individual can create opportunities for himself.
Yeah, definitely. So basically, I think probably I can try to answer in such a way. I always tell my team that if you want to progress in your role, you just don't have to do the work that is assigned to you. You need to start looking at on a much broader scale. So for example, if you're working as an accounts receivable function, you're not just there to issue bills and collect money. You actually start to look on the next level, how your work is affecting other departments, and then how that work is affecting the company as a whole. So when you start looking at the next level, how what you are doing is affecting the company as a whole, because no task anyone in doing company is small or is immaterial. It always has a chain reaction which ultimately ends to a profit or loss for the company. So when you are working, even in a junior role, you're working as accountant and you want to move an FP in your role, or you want to move to a business finance role, you need to see how your role will affect the other departments, how your role will affect the business. A person who's working as an accountant, yes, he is not currently working on forecasting or budgeting. He's not working on financial planning right now, but you need to know your work is used by those financial planners or those person in business finance to do the forecasting. So when you understand that, you will start taking ownership of your work. You will start understanding how one invoice that you're posting will affect the forecast for next year. When you understand that part, you will come at level that how you can actually forecast for the company. So many times we have seen this in the company that the business finance will come to accountants and ask them, can you please provide me some basis for the forecasting? And they're not just asking, okay, can you tell me what's the actual? They're asking you, out of those actual results, which part is actually sort of after normalizing the earnings, which part is actually going to happen next year again, which part is one-off and may not happen, which part has not happened but they foresee it might happen. So those things, when you start understanding and start getting the idea how your work is affecting other departments and how your work is affecting the business as a whole, that will help you to grow and progress in your own role very quickly. Yeah.
Okay. I have another question here. I'm soon finishing my degree in accountancy and finance. How can I ensure that the future company that I join will help me with ACCA's PER of 3 years? Did I read it right?
Okay. So I think if you're referring to the experience requirement, as far as I know, for ACCA, they have certain, from what I last remember, they have certain roles available within the accounting. So it's a checklist of items that a person needs to do actually to count the experience, which I think is required by ACCA to count it as a relevant experience in their career. So yes, I mean, how you can do, you can talk to your manager, you can talk to your mentor in the next role and see if they can approve and they can endorse your experience in that regard. If not, you can always, I think ACCA also allows you to use external persons as mentor to actually help you to endorse your career path, career journey. So yes, that is, I mean, and usually, I mean, when you're working in accountancy, and that list that's provided by ACCA for PER usually is quite comprehensive and exhaustive list. So somewhere, I mean, whatever you're doing in accounting related role, you'll be able to checklist that item off your list, and then that can be used as a professional experience requirement for ACCA.
Okay. We've got running out of time, so we'll just answer one last question, right? Will the employer consider a very experienced candidate to work on as a controller, though he has FP and A experience and business partner experience, but controlling?
Okay, I'm sorry, your voice is breaking. Let me get it out. So will the employer
Sorry.
consider a very experienced candidate to work on a controller?
As a controller, right, though he has FP and A experience and business partner experience, but not controlling?
So yeah, I mean, it all depends on how you present yourself, how you present your role. Many times an accountant is working probably mainly on just reporting for statutory requirements, but he may have worked with other people from business finance or business partnering role, and he might have helped those people to come up with a forecast and analysis. So you can highlight that part, that yes, you have worked, you may not have worked exclusively on this part, but you help with other people to come up with deliverables for the management. So being a controller, yes, it gives you advantage because you know in and out of accounting, you know how the information is flowing, but then that just highlighting that part may not be sufficient. You may also need to highlight that yes, you know the business, how the business is operating, what costs are very critical for the business, and then how that can be optimized to actually and used for business forecasting and budgeting. So basically, it all ends up how you present yourself.
Okay, all right, that's about the time that we have left. Thanks, Uma, for sharing, okay, and answering those questions. Yeah, but before we part, next slide, please. I'd like to draw your attention, or rather, I'd like to share this information. For those of you who are currently looking out for a job, or if you know of anyone who is looking for job opportunities, do direct them, or you can go on to our COVID-19 Jobs and Resources Hub that we have created for you. Here, you can actually gather useful career articles, but most importantly, we have immediate vacancies from the various companies from the different sectors, right, who are currently now hiring. So you can either scan, right? In fact, this was actually displayed before we started the event. Scan, if not, you can go on to our website and then you'll be able to just click onto the site to take a look. Okay, one more thing, all right, we will be having more in the industry night sessions along the way, but we'll also like to hear from you on what other industry topics that you probably like us to cover. So do us a favor, give us your feedback, all right, just share with us, and you can actually find our feedback form at the end of upon your log out from this session. Okay, so just give us some feedback, and then at least for the ongoing sessions, we can cater whatever you want to listen to. All right, okay. So once again, I'd like to thank Uma for taking the time to share with our members today. Right, I hope all of you have found the session useful. Right, until the next time, stay safe, right, and take care there. Bye.